it is really important that we begin to change the mindset of young people to know that your vote counts.
They don't understand that the legislative arm of government is actually a co-equal arm of government.
We have an incredible amount of potential.
Whatever it is I was doing, because of my personal DNA, it had to be of an international standard, which is what, seriously speaking, is all about. Welcome. On the show today, we're going to be talking, it's Independence Day, so I should probably start by saying Happy Independence Day. For some, there's no reason to celebrate. People are always griping and complaining. Nigeria is still crawling, even though she's 57 and things like that. But the reason I'm doing this show today, and I'm not going into politics or whatever, I decided to choose a man who's written a book that is asking certain questions that we should be asking ourselves. Are we in some ways responsible for the problems that we have? Are we? Whether it's you in the leadership or you in the followership. Are we thinking, even in our families, are we thinking about succession? The problem with succession remains a fundamental factor. I'll return in a moment with my guest. It's mystery for now, but I do know that he's very knowledgeable in this area because he's worked in a ministry that is responsible for forming souls and bodies for development of the nation. I'll be right back in a short while.
My prayer and wish for the country is celebrating 57 years. I hope that the dollar price will have to come down. I hope the dollar price will come down. I also hope that our educational system will improve.
Well, my hopes are quite much because judging from everything that has been happening, so I hope for, in a very simple way, I hope for a better Nigeria. A Nigeria where everything is working, basic amenities are easy to access, infrastructure is good. So just all of that. That's all I hope for in a better Nigeria. These basic amenities, let them be well accessible.
I'm hoping that we have leaders. It's not even a matter of better leaders because I feel like we have rulers, we're not leaders. So turning 57, I'm hoping that we'll have good leadership, because I think that's where the problem starts.
The name Adefarasin is popular around these parts and most of the world too, because there's one family that people say everybody in it is pastoring one church or the other. But it turns out that it's just, at least all the sons are pastoring the church or the other. Two are pastoring churches, but the others work with God. And then the two sisters, everybody is so godly. Now I have the head technically of that family, because it's the first son in the family, Pastor Wale Adefarasin, as my guest on the show today. It's nice to welcome you to Seriously Speaking.
It's an honor.
I'm very glad that you agreed to do this with just a phone call. Now, you gave me your book. I see it is about succession and governance. And I'm like, this is speaking to a theme I would like to address. But before I talk about the book, I want to talk about you. Like I said at the intro, your family is one that is seen as that godly family. Did this happen by accident, that everybody turned out to be Christians, super Christians, monitoring souls and growing souls? Or was there something about the succession of your father who was a judge?
I think it was just that I came from a praying family. My parents were Christians and were people of prayer. My mother would harden her knees in prayer. And I think just as a result of that, because none of us, absolutely none of us thought we would become ministers, as it were. And we just ended up that way because they were praying people.
You're praying people. But was it tough having to pray as a young man growing up? Did you grumble sometimes? And or were you the good one?
I got to understand my father very well. He used to go to Anglican church in Montgomery Road, All Saints Catholic Church. And he was so happy when I told him, I'm coming to church with you next Sunday. He didn't realize that the Queen's College girls went to that church. So that was why I went to church. Mm-hmm. So yes, I wasn't really serious about Christianity, not until much later in life. Okay, but now you've pastored the church, you were ordained in 1989. That's like yonks. Does it feel like that to you? As you pastor a church, there are times when you have ups and downs. I reckon many times I felt like just throwing in the towel. But then, pastoring is really built or founded on a relationship with God. If you have a relationship with him, he helps you through those difficult times. Yeah, we've had our ups and downs. We've been able to put up a church building, which was a miracle. And there'll be many highlights.
Are there issues of maybe envy, or my brother is doing better than me, or my sister is winning more souls, or do those things come up? Well,
you'd have to ask my siblings, because I'm happy to see, and I think this goes to the heart of succession, that the leader is happy to see those that come in behind him do better than he has done. So I'm happy to see them do very well.
Was there a case in your family, for example, sorry I'm dwelling on this, that's the juicy part, that, for example, you were the first to become born again, and did you plan?
Well, my siblings will contend with you on that. We all got born again within the same few months.
Oh, wow.
But I think Paul probably was the first to get born again. But I was the first to become a pastor. He's the youngest. As a matter of fact, we both shared a guest chalet in my father's house. And he would wake up at 5 a.m. blasting in tongues. And I had to call my father and say, Dad, there's something wrong with him. I mean, he speaks this strange language. And but that was teething.
So I'm going through this process because it's important how you raise your kids. Because I find that your church in particular is very particular about the family. I mean, your style of preaching with your TV show that you call Heart of the Matter, you're talking to things, about the family. So what's your interest in the family?
Well, I describe the family thus. It is at the epicenter of God's redemptive plan for mankind. Everything that God will do centers around family. Now, in the family, if a child has not been taught its values by the time it's 10 years old, its character is generally formed. And so a lot of parents delegate the responsibility for raising their children, especially when it comes to spending time bonding, passing values across to them. They delegate those responsibilities to house help and so on. And by the time the child has reached 15, they find it very difficult to be able to see eye to eye with them.
So somebody just beeped a little question to me and said, Pastor Wale, how do you manage to stay? Because your church is, Guiding Light Assembly is right in the middle of a big neighborhood, and it's a living neighborhood. They're like, how do you manage to keep your neighbors from disturbing you that you're disturbing them? Well,
first of all, we got there first.
Yeah.
So anybody that bought land near us knew that there was a church there. Second, we do our best not to. We've soundproofed as much as we possibly can. We do our best not to disturb them. And then thirdly, we want them to come to church so they're with us and not disturbing us. At
the time the church is running. And anyway, so obviously you live by example. And I believe this is something you took from your father. I want to believe so.
Well, one day my father took me to the Cathedral Church of Christ for an evensong. And the bishop stood behind the pulpit and he said, do as I say, not as I do. And at the age of about 9, I knew there was something wrong with that statement, because if you can't do it, why say that I should do it? So exemplary leadership is really the only way of leading people.
So now let's talk about Nigeria. We're 57 now with independence. There's a lot of talk around restructuring, a lot of talk about all of those things. And then you write a book saying, maybe we should look a little bit and see if we've taken the thought of succession as an issue seriously.
Yeah, well, first of all the clamor for things like restructuring and all that will not work if our psyche remains the same. We must become a people who put the general interest before self-interest.
What's our psyche right now?
Every man for himself. Survival of the fittest. Get all you can get all you can it all, sit on the can and poison the rest.
Now, is that a function of we've evolved to be like, for example, you were in the oil business. That is the big business. You left that for God, Is that we've been programmed to become that way, or that's just how we are?
With no disrespect to the man, somebody said early on in Nigeria's history that money is not our problem, it's how to spend it. That sent a signal to Nigerians that if you don't have money, there's something wrong with you. And there was a rush from the villages into the cities, and a rush to get money. And if you did have money and nobody knew you had money, there was something wrong. So this era of conspicuous consumption began. Now, it's been unchecked ever since it started. It's been unchecked, and so we've just become a people that are so materialistic. You come into church, people are looking for blessings. They want a car, they want a house, they want a job. It's all about us, and it has to change. Any society that will make progress has to be a society in which people are thinking about the other person. That's the essence of Christianity. It's other-centered, not self-centered.
Okay, if that's the case, then some people say pastors are even as guilty as the ordinary people. They lead larger-than-life lives, and then they promise prosperity, asking if you come here, you become this, you become that. So some say religion might be the reason that Nigeria is still the way it is today.
I won't dispute that. And I think that there's a lot we need to sit down as pastors and talk to ourselves about. We really need to change the impression people have of us and to moderate our lifestyles. I think that's important. However, having said that, don't let us make the pastors the bogeyman. Yeah. What happens is, in any movie, you have a main plot, you have subplots. In Christianity, there's a main plot. It's the kingdom of God. Okay? The subplots are healing, deliverance, prosperity. And what's happening is we've focused on the subplots and we've left the main plot. We need to get back to the main plot. Mm-hmm. We're here so that God can use us to bring his values, his kingdom, his principles to bear on us.
Now, your book is not just talking about God. It's talking about governance, starting from the family level and how succession is key. Take me through that.
Well, the inspiration for the book was a dinner I had with a former U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington. In the dinner, he said that his first trip to Nigeria was actually in 1959. And he said he graduated from Harvard University, joined the U.S. Peace Corps, and then was posted to Nigeria and sent to University of Ibadan. At University of Ibadan, he was wowed. I mean, this was a first-class university in the heart of Africa. He was really blessed during the 6 months he spent here. And then he came back 30 years later as ambassador. He wanted to visit Nigeria, visit the university, and when he got there, he was dismayed. He said he couldn't stop tears from forming in his eyes at what he saw in just 30 years. So I started to wonder, what is it that makes institutions fail in Nigeria? It's not an education problem. It's not University of Ibadan. It's everything. You hardly have people who've started businesses that survive more than, say, 50 years. You don't have practices, law practices, medical practices that last much beyond the founder. And I concluded that it was that nobody had raised the people that were coming behind them to be able to continue and empowered them with all they need to be able to continue with the institution.